there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated sci-fi and fantasy releases for the second half of 2020. Before we get on into it, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. I'm going to be talking about 8 new releases for YA and for adult, so if you're interested in just skipping to the adult books, then I'll go ahead and put a timestamp below. I'm going to be talking about these books chronologically, starting with the newest releases first. The first book I'm really excited for is Girl, Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust, and this comes out on July 7th. In this book, we follow a girl named Soraya, and Soraya is poisonous to the touch. Because of her poisonous touch ability, she has been hidden away by her family. She's only ever interacted with her family members. She's only ever been at their house and in their gardens. But Soraya wants to escape her life of captivity, and her need to escape leads her to make a deal with a demon who might be able to help her, but her deal has bad consequences also. I'm excited for this book because it just sounds really fairy tale-esque and just whimsical and magical and fantastical and all things that I love in YA fantasy. The next book I'm excited for is The Damned by Renee Adhieh. This is, I don't know if it's the sequel to The Beautiful, which came out last year, or if it's going to be a series, but this is the next book in the series regardless. I actually picked up The Beautiful last October and I only got about less than halfway through and I put it down. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, I just kind of wasn't in the right headspace for that type of story at the time. I still haven't picked it back up, but it is a book that I definitely want to finish at least in 2020 so I can read the sequel when it comes out. This book also comes out on July 7th. In the book, The Beautiful, we follow a girl named Celine, and it is the year 1872, and she is a dressmaker who recently fled Paris because of something unfortunate that happened in her life, and she relocated to New Orleans, Louisiana. When Celine arrives in New Orleans, she ends up finding out that the city is ruled or under the influence of vampires. She also ends up getting inadvertently involved in this influential ritzy club known as Le Coeur des Lions, which is run by the very mysterious Sebastian. Soon, a series of gruesome murders begins to appear across New Orleans, and Celine begins to suspect that Sebastian and his club may be involved, so she decides to take matters into her own hands and investigate what is causing or going on with these murders. The next book I am so excited about because it basically checks off so many things that I love about fantasy, and that is Where Dreams Descend by Janella. This is a new YA fantasy duology that comes out on August 25th. The setting of this story takes place in a city that is covered by ice and ruined, and there are these different types of magician groups that constantly compete against one another in order to win the headlining space in this famous circus known as the Conquering Circus. As each act becomes more and more risky, the number of missing and or dead magicians begins to pile up, and the magicians of each group begin to wonder if there is something more dark and sinister behind the circus than they originally thought. I have heard that this book has vibes of Phantom of the Opera, and that is like an immediate sell point for me because I absolutely love Phantom of the Opera, and anything that has to do with magicians and circuses and creepy carnivals I absolutely love. So this is definitely a highly anticipated book for me in 2020. The last YA fantasy book I'm going to be talking about is Fable by Adrienne. I read her book Sky in the Deep last year and absolutely loved it. And I said to myself that she was a new favorite author, so that if she did come out with another piece of work that I would definitely be picking this up. Plus, look at this cover. It is absolutely gorgeous. In this book, we follow a girl named Fable, and Fable is the daughter of the most powerful trader in all of the Narrows. After Fable's mother is killed during a storm on the high seas, Fable's father decides to abandon her on this island that is filled with the unscrupulous, basically thieves and criminals. For years, Fable tries to figure out how she's going to escape this island and reinsert herself back into her father's life and demand retribution for what he's done. And in order to do that, she enlists the help of a trader named West. And as the story goes on, we learn that there may be more to West than we originally thought. Fable comes out on September 1st. Now I'm going to be talking about the 4 adult sci-fi and fantasy releases that I am super excited for in the second half of 2020. The first one is The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. This comes out on June 20th. In this book, we follow a girl named Rix, and Rix is the granddaughter of a very powerful ruler of an empire called Vashkandar. As the granddaughter of such a famous, powerful ruler, she's automatically expected to be powerful herself and live a life of prestige. But Rix, unlike the rest of her family, has magic that is considered broken. She can drain the life from living things, and this type of magic is looked down upon in this empire. One night, after a terrible accident befalls her, Ray flees her home and decides to find out if she can cure herself of this terrible magical ability. While she's on her journey to find out if she can cure herself, she falls in with a group of magical kind of like investigators that are looking into this disturbance within the Vashkender Empire, and Rix finds out that these disturbances might have something to do with her own family. The next book I'm going to be talking about is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, and this is a sci-fi, and Christopher Paolini wrote the Inheritance Cycle or the Aragon books when he was just a teenager, and he has not published anything since, and I think it's been like, I don't even know, a decade, maybe two, since those books were published. So this is such a highly anticipated book because the Inheritance Cycle Quartet is such an iconic, famous series for younger fantasy readers. So I'm very interested to see what Christopher Paolini does with this new adult sci-fi series. In the story, we follow a woman named Kira, and Kira is what's known as a xenobiologist. And during a routine space mission on an unoccupied planet, she discovers an artifact underneath the surface of this uncolonized planet. Kira's discovery to learn the truth about this relic will end up altering the course of human history itself. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars comes out on September 15th. The next book I'm very excited for is The Incredible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. If you're not familiar with who V.E. Schwab is, she wrote the Shades of Magic trilogy as well as Vicious and Vengeful. In this story, we follow a young woman named Addie, and it starts out in the year 1714, and Addie makes a bargain with some sort of supernatural entity to live forever. And although immortality is granted to Addie, there is a consequence to this bargain. Anyone who comes into contact with Addie loses all their memories of her. So Addie goes through year after year trying to make people remember her and trying to find ways to imprint herself in the memory of the world, and nothing works. But everything changes when 300 years later, Addie ends up meeting a man in a small hidden bookshop who knows and remembers her name. This book just sounds very intriguing, and it sounds very mysterious and like one of those books where the mystery will be unfurled with little bits at a time, and it just sounds like it's going to be so enthralling, so I'm very excited for this. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue comes out on October 6th. And the last book I'm going to be talking about is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 4 in the Stormlight Archives. I just finished Way of Kings in April and was totally sucked into this story and this world, and I am hooked. And I'm going to be starting Words of Radiance come June, spoiler for my TBR. So I definitely want to have the first 3 books read before Rhythm of War comes out, because already I am very excited for it. And Rhythm of War comes out on November 7th. Alright, you guys, so that is it for my most anticipated sci-fi and fantasy releases for the second half of 2020. Let me know in the comments what books you are excited for in the second half of 2020, or if you're excited to read any of the books that I mentioned, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Goodbye!